What's up, peoples? I ain't got much time, so I'm gonna try and move through this as fast as I can. Uh, just let me just check something here. Yeah, I thought so. Let me just let me move through this quickly. You guys can still chat up a storm in the chat section, but I'm not gonna be checking the chat section that often. Okay. Let me get into what we have to talk about today. First of all, from Scripture, Psalms 120, I believe it was 126. I read. I just want to read a specific thing. Turn our captivity, O Lord, as the streams of the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goes forth weeping, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again rejoicing, bringing sheaves with him. Sowing and reaping, I'm talking about here. Sometimes you have to sow a lot of sorrow and pain and a lot of difficulty in order to reap the benefits. So I just wanted to say that before we get into this DCEU movie. All right, remember, sometimes you have difficulty, sometimes it's because of you, sometimes it's not because of you. Difficulty comes your way, but do understand that if you stay with it, it will bear fruit and it will make you bring forth really good things that the world needs. All right, let's go into what we're talking about today. So, of course, we're talking about DCEU realism, and we start off with Arctic Cargo, which was found in Man of Steel. This is an interesting company. It's a fictional company. It's not a real company. It's not grounded in the comics, none of that stuff. It was a fictional company that transports cargo. And as you can see here, Arctic Cargo is what, this was the company here. You can also see the logo on Jed Eubanks's shirt here, or his coat. If you look at Jed Eubanks's coat right here, you see Arctic Cargo as well. It's Jed Eubanks. And Jed Eubanks was one of the workers of the company. And Lewis Lane would visit him later on. And Joe, which is basically Joseph Kent, Joe was one of the workers in the company as well. So there's a little quick breakdown on it, and then I move on to something else, right? So Arctic Cargo is a helicopter charter company which provides hired air assistance in Canada to the Arctic Circle. Hence, it's called Arctic Cargo. And some of the known employees were Jed and Joe Clark, but of course they had other employees and pilots and stuff because they had to fly the planes and stuff. What's interesting also is in the background here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. There's another helicopter in the background. I think Jed came on board with that helicopter, or maybe not. But there it is in the background. Again, that's Arctic Cargo right there. Now, I want to point out that it's a fictional company. And I just talked to you guys about realism. So we'll get into, I'll put it all together in the end. The other fictional company that was in Man of Steel, if you guys do recall, was Bright Arctic. And Bright Arctic, for some reason, oh, here it is. Okay, here's Bright Arctic. Now, Bright Arctic, they had the oil rig. So the oil rig that was collapsing, it was Bright Arctic's oil rig. You can see Bright Arctic right there, and there, and there, and there. And just in case you can't see it properly, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit more so you can see. There you go. That's nice and clear. You can see that it's Bright Arctic that is written there. Bright Arctic. Bright Arctic, okay? That's the rig platform. And this rig was Bright Arctic rig, which was, of course, in the North American Pacific Ocean. So it's on the other side of the United States, was in the Pacific, but it was in the Arctic Pacific. So that's important to me. It was very north, high north. Now, what's interesting about that is the company is a fictional company. You will not find it in the comics, nowhere there. This was something that was kind of invented. And this fictional company behaves like a real company, okay? It has normal operations on the rig. The rig exploded. And the Clark was able to basically hold the platform that was collapsing together just in time for the helicopter. The rescue helicopter, particularly that rescue helicopter, to actually leave. Now, the rescue helicopter is a literal, real rescue helicopter that actually runs operations. And so it was very interesting that was a real helicopter. This is a fake oil rig, and this is a fake company. Now, what I wanted to show you guys about that, my point behind it, and by the way, he swam to shore on Cadover. Okay, it's an actual place he was at, which is Cadover. It's a real place. Now, The mixture of fiction with reality is what Zack Snyder was playing around with in Man of Steel. And to get this thing to work, remember, Superman's a fictional character, right? He's not a real character, right? So this is fiction right there. And then you mix it in with reality. And it's interesting that he also mixed in some of the fictional, he had some fictional places and things put into the movie as well. And it's nice how he seamlessly mixes fiction with reality. And this is what I wanted to show you guys, because this is it gets very interesting. And that's why I talk about realism, because realism is something where realism doesn't mean that everything you see in the movie is real. Okay, that's not what realism is about, especially hyperrealism. Hyperrealism is about giving you the feeling that everything you see in a movie is real. The feeling of it, not that everything in the movie that you see is real, but that you feel that everything in the movie is real. That is realism. Okay, and so what I like about this, and I was trying to point it out to you guys, is that if you look at all of these different companies here, again, this may be a little too small, so I'm going to have to zoom it in a little bit. Let me see if I can get nice and sharp right there. Okay, so when you look at Arctic Cargo, which Lois Lane revisits to speak to Jed, you see the helicopters here with their logo on it, okay? The different helicopters. But you have to understand, this company is not real. Now, everything in your mind's going to scream it's real, but it's not. Okay? It's not real. Okay? And okay, maybe the mountainside that you're seeing there in the background is real, and the trees and everything, and even these planes and stuff are real. But this is a fictional company. It's a fictional company. There's no company out there named Arctic Cargo. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Arctic Cargo, if you pay attention to all of the other places that we have, which are absolute real places, this place got burnt down, but this is a real place, right? This is a real place, Cassidy Hotel. The U.S. Coast Guard, this is literally there on the U.S. Coast Guard's base here. So this is real. This is a real place, okay? And then this here is a real wharf they're on with real ships. And this is the real ship Mary Sue. This is a real place you're looking at, okay? Literally, it's real, okay? 100% real. The interesting thing about this is when you look at this scene here, it doesn't feel out of place to the other scenes. In other words, this is what Zack Snyder was able to do. He was able to create fictional places or fictional things, but he mixes it into a real world so well that you think the fiction is real. Now that's important because you're trying to ground a Superman and make a Superman that feels real all the way through, so that anything that he does feels real. And I thought there were some little nuances that hint to us that he's Superman even before, even in when he was on the Mary Sue, there was a hint that he was Superman. It's so nuanced that most of you probably missed it, and that is when the guy tackled, when he was called Greenhorn, when he tackled Greenhorn, notice this big hulk of a man actually bounced off to the side of Greenhorn. He didn't tackle him fully and knock Greenhorn down directly in front of him. No, he tackled him and he bounced off of Greenhorn and he fell to the side. He actually fell further away than Greenhorn did. And that was a nuance that should have let someone know Greenhorn's not your normal guy. That Greenhorn is solid. That guy had to have hit into a block of a full-blooded wall when he hit him and bounced off of it. Okay? Think about what I'm saying. So if you look at Wonder Woman, there's a scene that's a little bit more obvious. It's not as nuanced. But if you look at when she is saving Steve Trevor, they don't make a big deal of it. Steve Trevor was fighting to kind of get off the steering system that was coupled to him, and she just pulled the steering system off. She just broke it off. Showing that she was super strong. But they didn't, again, it was nuanced. They didn't, straight up say that, Diana, they didn't glorify it. They didn't, highlight it. Some movies highlight the fantastical. In this case, they didn't highlight it. She just kind of pulled it up and it pulled him up and got him to the surface and swam to shore, right? And if you don't pick up the nuance that there's something different about this person, it reminds me a little bit of Split. If you go and watch Split, there's these nuances all the time. There's these little hints that this guy is not as people think. We're thinking straightforward about this guy, but he's not. There's something different about him. That's the nuance in there. And the interesting thing about filmmaking is the nuance of it. And so I just wanted to point out that to be able to pull off fantastical things in a real grounded world, you actually have to, first of all, be able to pull off fictional things that emulate the real world. And then after that, now tweak them a little bit so that you can see the fantastical elements. For instance, when he was, after we saw Greenhorn there and he said, get me my binoculars, Greenhorn. The next time we see Greenhorn, he's on the rig and his hands are digging into the sides of the rig going up on it. But they didn't exaggerate it. They didn't show you his hands punching into the rig as he's climbing up the rig. They're not going to show you that stuff, right? They just give you a little hint. Oh, wait a minute, what's this guy doing? And you see the angle, and immediately at first you think to yourself, wow, that's incredible. What's that shot? And then you just start to think, how is he holding on to that thing? You know, it doesn't immediately, it's just very casually put on the screen. And then they introduce the hyper-realism, the superpower of Superman, and they do it in a natural way. And the key behind it is to be organic in how you tell your stories. In a grounded story, what pulls off a grounded story is the fact that you're organically doing something. You're organically telling the story. And that's the trick that Zack Snyder was able to pull off on you guys. And so when you see Henry Cavill holding on to the base of the rig, climbing it, going up, and you're saying to yourself, how the hell is he doing that? But it still looks incredible, and you're believing the shot. You're just saying to yourself, how's he doing that? Somewhere in the back of your mind, you're wondering about that. Then you see him on fire as he bursts through. He crumples the door, and he opens the door, and he's on fire. Now, it feels very natural to see him on fire, but you're saying to yourself, this is incredible. Somewhere in the back of your mind, it's like a huge, like, what the heck? You know, but the guys who are in there, they're not studying about it. They're trying to be saved. They only care about being saved. This guy is immune to flames. We don't know what's going on. There's something paranormal going on here. That's how we would describe it. But they're happy to be rescued to safety, right? And so the only time you really see the full impact, and you know this guy is not normal, this guy is something else, is when he uses super speed and jumps into the collapsing oil rig that's falling down, and he holds it. And now they're really trying to show you that this guy is not normal. Okay, now they're not nuancing anything anymore. They're not just kind of just touching on it and just leaving. No, this guy is different. Okay, this guy is different. He's holding, now the tower falls down on him, but hey, man, this guy is different. Okay. And that, my friends, is how you do superheroes in a grounded world. You gradually nuance them and introduce them and nuance them. Because if you were to just go full blown into superhero in a grounded world, that shit would be, you would flop at the box office, because it's not something that you just immediately can do. And that's the brilliance of Man of Steel. Man of Steel is probably, Zack Snyder has done a fantastic, I have to admit, I have to say, you know what, I thought Man of Steel was just a grounded, solid film, but the kind of work they put behind Man of Steel, I think that movie is a masterpiece of a film. Now I think about it. Now here's the interesting thing about this. And this is where Zack Snyder really thrives, because he's really into realism. And you look at, like, you know, Owls of Ga'Hoole and the way how the wings flutter and all that shit. You see realism. What he did with this fictitious place was he centered it in a real setting, a real place. So everything here is real. The building is real. The helicopters are real. The people are real. This is a real setting. This is a real constructed place. This is real. He did not use CGI for that, because he didn't. You feel the groundedness of the setting, and it feels very real. So even though they built that building there that you see, which is Arctic Cargo, it feels real. And so it fits in with all these other places, which are actual real places with actual real truckers, with actual real trucks, and these are real places. Okay, these are absolutely real places, and they all correspond the same way, because these are real places. And he fit in this setting in between those those collages of real places. So he was able to make you associate it with a real place. I actually thought Arctic Cargo was an actual real place, and then I found out it wasn't. Okay, so that's how Zack Snyder pulled that off, which leads us to yet another interesting way how he flirts with fiction, and how he messes around with fiction with things which are actually real. IHOP buildings. Excuse me for a second. I'll come back. Yeah. Sorry about that. I had to leave for a second. I was just checking out things. The sky is very overcast today, and it had a little bit of sun, but it was mostly overcast and rainy. Yes. So this is the interesting thing about Zack Snyder. So I've been posting this up on social media. I'm of course getting a lot of feedback on the stuff I'm talking about concerning Zack Snyder and his movies and stuff. And I've also been involved in some political conversations on the Me Too movement and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I've been kind of living on social media. I should really make some money off of this, but I really want to just share this stuff with you guys. So, for instance, IHOP restaurant is a known restaurant throughout the United States of America, as well as 7-Elevens, right? As well as Sears, right? And all of these businesses we saw in Smallville. Now, Smallville is a fictitious place. It's a fictitious place. It does not exist, okay? But IHOP does exist. We know the company, at least IHOP. We know 7-Eleven does exist. We know these things. So here's the interesting thing about it, though. The IHOP business that you saw in Smallville, or shall I say in Plano, Indiana, I'm sorry, not Indiana, Plano, Illinois, where literally the scenes that they shot came from Plano, Illinois. This 7-Eleven's in Plano, Illinois. The IHOP was in Plano, Illinois. These places, which you saw shot, they're not actual places in Plano, Illinois. These were constructed from the ground up. They're made of wood and plastic and that kind of stuff. Those are not real rock pillars. Those are fake sort of plastic pillars. All right. The 7-Eleven was a fake 7-Eleven, didn't pump gas or anything. But at the end of the day, these were put down in certain plots of areas of Plano, Illinois. Now, what's very interesting about this is Zack Snyder, again, taking the motif. Now, remember, Smallville is a fictitious place, but how do you get it to look grounded, real, right? So the first thing you'll notice is that they put well-known landmarks there. Of course, big advertising to IHOP and 7-Eleven. But more importantly, these are actual businesses in the real world. So these are real-world businesses which you can identify. But here's the other interesting point. These businesses in Plano, Illinois don't exist. So these were exclusively for the movie. So what he did was now he made fiction out of things that actually do exist. These were fictional buildings in Plano, Illinois, fictional buildings in fictional Smallville, but they are actually businesses that actually exist in the real world, which I found was fascinating how he flipped the script. So first we saw Arctic Cargo, which is a fictional business, and he grounds it into the real world, right? And now that he's taking real businesses from the real world, but he's putting them as fictional outlets, but they are grounded in the real world at the same time. So he's taken, now Arctic Cargo doesn't exist, but he grounded that in the real world. Now the IHOPs, there are all kinds of IHOPs in the United States, and there are all kinds of 7-Elevens in the United States. Those actually exist, but he took the name brand, which exists, He took the company that exists, and now he fictionalizes it by putting it into a actual outlet that does not exist. It's fictional. It does not exist. If you go and look in Plano, Illinois, they don't have IHOPs and they don't have 7-Elevens. They have their own little versions of IHOPs. They have their own versions of a 7-Eleven, you know, that some private guy in that little area, you know, but they don't have a 7-Eleven and they don't have IHOPs. And I found that to be very interesting. So that even in grounding the Smallville that we saw on the screen, we're really looking at fictional outlets or fictional businesses. The Sears building didn't exist either. It was actually a street that they closed off and made the Sears building. These are fictional outlets, but of real businesses. It's crazy, isn't it? How you flip the script on everything. And that leads us to Smallville. The water tower that we see that identifies Smallville is the actual water tower of Plano, and literally looks like this, as you can see here. You see the Plano sign right there. Let me zoom in a little bit more again on it. It's nice and sharp right there. So there is a water tower in Plano, in downtown Plano. You can see it. There it is right there. And here are some of the businesses of Plano. And strangely enough, I didn't put this in my memes, but actually in downtown Plano, these businesses can clearly be seen. And some of these businesses, actually, a little bit more of these businesses actually are seen in Smallville as well. And some of the signs, okay? All of the buildings are seen in Smallville, that's for sure. So when you see Welcome to Smallville, this is really the Plano water tower, okay? That's this water tower here that you're seeing, okay? And they went and changed the label of it. Either, I don't know if they did it via computer or if they did it via actually going and slipping up a Smallville label on it. I don't know. But I find it very interesting that this is, again, a fictional city based on a real city, based on the real city's infrastructure. And some of the businesses of the city, the original authentic businesses, are actually advertised in the actual movie. And I'll try and show you some of them right now. So if you were to be in Smallville, for instance, this is Man of Steel we're looking at here. Okay, sorry about that. Let me just go back here. Okay. Right. So this is the first thing. This is the Man of Steel set. And then you see actual Plano. And I actually have the actual addresses and everything. So let me blow this up really nice and big until this sharpens up. There you go. So this is what the set of Man of Steel looked like. Okay. It's called Main Street something. So there was a different sign there. This is, of course, way back in 2012, 2013. These are some of the people of Plano that actually participated in this movie, and some of them are spectators. And this is the Man of Steel set here. Okay. Now, what I have is some of the works from 2016. So the place kind of changed up a little bit, but you can see it's Shelley's Cafe now. There's a different sign, which is Treasure Hunters. I have the DC comic book signs on the outside there. They got the same lampstand though. They got the flags going out there. So that's really cool. Same infrastructure, of course. So you can have a look and see it's the same infrastructure. But actually in 2013 or thereabouts, we can see that this is it here. This is the same place we're looking at. You can see that infrastructure-wise, the sign, that sign that you saw before, the this sign here in 2013 was actually there. So the sign, so this sign here, the office works, you can see a piece of it. Let me zoom in so you can see it for yourself. You see right in the foreground. This is Plano. This is not Man of Steel territory, right? You can see the office work in the background. So actually, there was a different sign there before Man of Steel came on the place. Okay, so that you know, they changed the sign here post that, and you actually can see the date when this satellite photo was taken. Oh shit! You're fucking kidding me, man. Okay, so let me. Okay, so the date is somewhere here. September 2016. That was taken. Okay, you can see windows and stuff. And this is a different sign, of course, treasure hunters. It's a different sign and everything. But again, I just gave you the same street view as here. Okay, now they have the flags and stuff up there. We see some flags here. They're a little bit different places. You got flags there. So the flags still stay. You know, the infrastructure is the same. You got a Freemason sign up on top of here, as you have the Freemason sign right here. As you can see. Slightly different stuff put on it, but more or less the same buildings, right? Now, if you look down below here, this here, when Man of Steel was being shot, we had the Smallville Hotel since 1889. They said, okay, Smallville Hotel here, flags and stuff on it. And then you had this building, Grain and Feed, okay, and farm stuff. These are all not real stuff, okay. These were put up, again, this is a Man of Steel set, as you can see, Man of Steel set, okay. So they changed up some things, but the basic buildings were the same. And here it is in 2016. This building is for rent. It was known as the Plano Hotel. Plano Hotel and Businesses of downtown Plano. And this here is the Cooper Home Furniture, or Cooper Home Furnishings, I think it is. All right, there's a set of buildings here. So again, it's slightly different in 2016 anyway, but there was always this different exterior here, even before Man of Steel, and then they came back and put back the exterior because it was the same businesses and stuff. And I remember Superman kind of, when he crashed through the 7-Eleven, he came right here. It was in front of this building. All right, but it wasn't Grain and Feed. Okay, it wasn't Grain and Feed. It never was a Grain and Feed building. They actually accessorized it that way. All right, so let's get to some more stuff. You can see, oh, actually, you can see the buildings for sale. If you're paying attention, you would see the for sale sign right there. See for sale. Let me zoom in a little bit more. See that? For sale. So this building is for sale right now, and I have a phone number there. It also wasn't in this red color down below before Man of Steel. Okay, and here's some more, and again, just kind of mixture of fiction and fact. Even the signs are kind of a mixture of fiction and fact. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. I should be zoomed in like crazy right now, so I should be great. Oh yeah, look at that. Everything's really good. Okay, so let's look at Man of Steel first. I may have to zoom out a little bit. This is Man of Steel right here. Now, if you look at Man of Steel, you see the Budweiser sign right there. Zoom out a little bit more. Just a little bit more. There you go. There you go. That's fine. There's the Budweiser sign in the side there. You get some flags in the background and so on. This is called the Tavern. But actually, in reality, it's not called the Tavern. There is the Budweiser sign. Okay, of course, you have the lamps and everything. The infrastructure is more or less the same. But you have the Budweiser sign. This was not a building that had any signs on it or anything. If you look here, that building is this building right here, which is pretty blank. You had the flags that were there, and of course the poles and stuff. But for the most part, you only had like the Budweiser sign, which was there, advertising Budweiser. But most of the other things, no. Okay, so you have, you know, it's one or two things that they kept. Look at this here. Again, not much that is the same. This is the building here you're looking at, and this is the actual building here. Okay, camera kind of distorts it a little bit, but there's nothing here that's similar. Nothing whatsoever. This is even a different sign, even though it's the same colors and the same sort of styling of the what is said on it. It's a different sign. Okay, so they changed up mostly the signs. They also gave sometimes the exterior a slightly different panel look. This is New Kirk, and that's not. That's something Pi, Mark Pi, I think it is. Isn't that cool? Oh, we got some more here. Oh yeah, this is great. So down below here, zoom in a little bit more so you can actually see the details. If you look here, this is as they're heading up towards the water tower, okay, and you're coming outside of the city here. If you look right here, this, I don't know if you can see the sign properly, so let me zoom in a little bit more. You can get a good look at it. This sign here is saying, sorry about that. This sign here is saying Hometown Lane Sports Bar. Okay, that's what it's actually saying, Hometown Lane. And the other interesting thing is that if you look here, this sign has kind of been blown away a little bit, but there's a little, another, like a banner there that's kind of getting blown away. And what's interesting about that is the identical banner right there. And this is literally the identical sign. And it literally says, I don't know if I can zoom in and actually show you it, but if you look carefully, well, you're not going to see it really, but it's still Hometown Lanes Sports Bar. That's what it actually says. It's very much like this sign above here. So it's the very same sign, which I thought was really cool. I'm trying to get it. It takes such a long time sometimes to get these stupid things to move the way you would like it to, but there it is. Okay, this is the same sign. Okay, and other than the sign, there's a stop sign over here, and we don't have that stop sign there. We don't. All right. Then you have the First State Bank. The First State Bank here is in actual Plano, Illinois. Then you have another building, but in between these two buildings, you have a street. It's called Hugh Street, as you can see. This is Main Street, East Main Street, and that's Hugh Street down there. Well, in fact, and there's no building here. In fact, in Man of Steel, they actually had a building on this side of it, and then they had the Sears building, which blocked out Hugh Street. So Sears building connected this building to the First Bank, which First Bank was right there, and you see the label and everything. There's Budweiser sign again. So I found that really interesting and cool to see that. And of course, all the other infrastructure is the same, except for sometimes the labels on the building. So there's some things they kept and some things they just didn't keep. All right. And again, the interesting thing about this is the merger, the mixing. Okay, sorry. The mixing of things which are realistic, reality, and things which are fictional. So a lot of some of these storefronts were fictional storefronts, but they retained one or two things of Plano, Illinois. And again, everything's grounded because the literal infrastructure is more or less Plano, Illinois infrastructure. So that when we look here again, these are the planes crashing into, the street, Main Street of Plano, Illinois. There's some things which are common, like the Budweiser sign that you can see right there. But these buildings, they have different labels and different names. This has a cover right here. Then it connects to this building right down here. This is called Mark Pye instead of Newkirk, but it's more or less the same kind of sign. You have all the light stands, all the infrastructure, this building, and literally this flag. And it still says "Welcome to Smallville" down below it. It was really a flag. It wasn't painted because of Man of Steel. It was after the fact. And there it is. It's also there. The tree lines, as you can see there, the Plano water tower. You can see here and there. I just find it very interesting, and these are the things you can see, and they actually, the people from Plano must be really happy. Actually, I think they're doing quite well tourism-wise, because a lot of people are coming into Plano just to see the tourism stuff, and they have the DC products and the DC this, and they have the Smallville sign. Yes, we were Smallville and that kind of stuff. So it's kind of fun to see all of that. Same car park and everything. So, infrastructurally, it's the same. And that's what helps the grounding. So that even if you put a fictional something in a real setting, it feels very real. Of course, they didn't crash. These planes that didn't actually crash in there, but they actually used real military people and stuff. And they even used parts of military planes, like the planes that they supposedly crashed in there. Oh, this is so crazy because you have CG mixed with reality, mixed with green screen, all these things put together to give you this particular outcome that you're seeing right in front of you. And I think that's just awesome. The green screen and some of that stuff is to connect the CGI to the discharges. So they may make different explosions there and blow up certain things. And then you connect the dust with the CGI plane, connecting from the realistic plane into and crashing and all that kind of stuff. It's really cool how they actually assemble all these things together and still make it organic and with the shaky cam and all of that stuff that was going on in it. It's really fantastic, I gotta tell you. So that leads us to something that a lot of people have not actually discussed in these movies. And I just want to talk a little bit about it before I get on my way. And so I just had to keep it rolling with you guys. The first thing is, you know, I put this up in social media already. So a lot of people have probably seen this, but I still find this so amusing and so interesting that I really want to go into it in some detail here. Okay. So the first thing, if you notice my video already, you probably are paying attention to the fact that you're looking at the little red triangles, right? The red outlines of triangles, right? And if you pay attention, I know a lot of things that people generally said, you know, they said like, you know, Martha Kent, she had to start working in BVS, like she wasn't working in Man of Steel. Nope, she was working in Man of Steel. She was working at Sears. And there's her Sears change there. There's a Sears outfit. And she was working in Sears, okay? But as we all know, and there's Sears there, as we all know, in Man of Steel, when General Zod came to Smallville and there was this big clash with him and the military and Kryptonians, etc. And that great battle, we know that there was this railroad train, which you can see right here, which, you know, I should really check it out and the number on it. You guys can do some homework, find out what this number means, if there's any meaning to it, or if this is an actual model off of an actual train. But that train was plowed into the Sears building and destroyed quite a lot, destroyed the building. And so Martha could not work at Sears anymore in Smallville, okay? If you look here, you'll see this is the first state bank. And so what's interesting about this is that because they couldn't work in Smallville anymore, she couldn't work in the Sears. Excuse me. The Sears outlet in Smallville. She ends up working for another place, another Smallville localized place, actually, but another place in Smallville. And this place, you know, I'm not going to flip any picture or anything, but this is the inside of it. Nice, comfy place. And you can see it's a place where you eat. Somebody has sandwiches there. You can see this guy's eating a sandwich. And they're all watching the TV as Superman goes to Congress. Okay, this is in BVS. So Martha has to change her job, and she's working in this business. And this business establishment, very interestingly enough, you can see its name right here. This is it right here. It's on the corner of Smallville Road. I don't know exactly where, but there's another building, of course, on the other side of the road. And you can see the name of the business. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see it properly. Okay, and if you look here, it says RALLI''SDINER, Raleigh's Diner. Okay, it's Raleigh's Diner. And if you look here, you might remember this from the picture above. Carry-out service sandwiches, open. There's the door there, just in case you can't remember. I'm going to show you right now. See the open sign right there? This is it from the inside. And look there. This is carry-out sandwiches, okay, over there. And they have all kinds of Kansas memorabilia from sports and stuff like that in there. So this is the place where she's working, Raleigh's Diner. And she continues to work there, and she's not making enough money to make her payments on time. So what ends up happening in Justice League is we find out that she loses the place where she lives, the Kent farm. And she says this about it. She's telling Lois Lane, I found a little place by the diner. That's where she works, of course, Raleigh's Diner. Suits me just fine. I got behind in the payments. Okay? So all of this actually happened. All of this transpired in between Batman v Superman and Justice League. Okay? And she loses the place where she lives. You see her U-hauling out of there. And she ends up by Lois Lane telling her about what transcribed, and she was just catching up on her. So I was saying that every time I rewatch these DCEU movies, I see something new. I did not know all this stuff, okay? In Man of Steel, how many of you realized that Martha Kent was working in a local Sears outlet until it was destroyed when Zod came looking for the Codex? Afterwards, she began working for a local diner named Raleigh's Diner in Smallville, which we saw in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, during which time she lost her home and rented out a little place near the diner. Yeah, all that happened to her. So I just thought this was something cool for you guys to check out for yourselves the next time you're watching, because it's pretty subtle. You don't ever see her working at Sears, right? But there are hints. And the thing about these movies is there's a lot of nuance going on in them. They don't overtly tell you everything. You have to piece it together. You have to watch and be observant and pay attention, because there's actually a story behind all of these people that you're watching. And if you're not paying attention, you're not going to see the story behind them. Okay, let's move on. Now, there's even more to this Raleigh's Diner. And this is the last, I think, bit of stuff I'm going to tell you guys about. And it's related to the comic books, okay? Raleigh's Diner is actually not just a fictional piece of work that Zack Snyder, like the other things, used to ground into reality, like, you know, Cargo, Arctic Cargo, or excuse me, or Arctic Cargo, or Bright Arctic, okay? This is actually comic book relevant and comic book accurate. So here you go. It's nice and clean now. Raleigh's Diner here. Raleigh's Diner is actually found in the comic books. If you go to Superman 1987, issue number 9 by John Byrne and Kessel, which is titled Guess Who's in Metropolis and Who Watches the Watchmen, is really cool there. You will find this little piece of information here. It's at the end of the comic. So you see, Metropolis is 900 miles away. And here is Raleigh's. Okay? So Raleigh's Diner. This is the establishment here. The long limousine outside. Looks like a Rolls Royce limousine. It's him, I tell you. It's really him. Lex Luthor, the richest man in the world. Sitting there eating steak and eggs. And he asked for Jenny's table. Her tips are going to pay off her mortgage. Anything else I can do for you, sir? Yes. You can join me for a little while. No, sir, I couldn't do that. I'm very flattered, Mr. Luthor. But Raleigh's company policy says we can't sit with the customers. Not while we are on duty. Raleigh's company's policy is of small interest to me, dear. If you've guessed who I am, you should also be able to guess that I probably own this restaurant. After all, I own 90% of the state. Now, please, sit. Well, maybe for a minute I could just... Now, what's interesting about this, if this comic book is saying anything, I'm not saying it is saying that this Raleigh's Diner that I'm seeing above here in Smallville could possibly be owned by none other than Lex Luthor. Think about that for a second. And would explain why Lex Luthor knew exactly where Martha Kent was and was able to kidnap her through KG Beast or Anatoly Knyazov. He knew where she was. He knew where she was working. And that's probably how he was able to kidnap her. Think about that for a second. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have to wrap up my time right now. I don't know what's going on out there. Somebody's blowing a horn. But in the interest of... okay, that person's calling a neighbor. In the interest of time, I'm going to just look to see if you guys have any comments in the chat section, and then I am going to get out of here. Even though it's a rainy, overcast day, I'm going to still try and make a go at getting out there and making some kind of revenue for myself. So let's see what you guys have to say in the comment section. Dave Ethan says, yes, my #1 favorite comic book movie of all time. Hashtag Man of Steel. All right, my dude. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me come out of this for a minute. And I always like to, share things that people maybe didn't see or didn't look up or didn't particularly pay attention to. You know what I mean? And so that's all I really have for today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Remember, there's always difficulty before there's the breakthrough. So always remember that. On that note, I hope you guys have a good day. Spend your time wisely. Shout out to Dave Ethan, all the good things you're doing online. Hope you're also working well, getting paid for your work. I got to go, guys. I got to go. You guys have a great one.